Hello everyone, we're looking at making inferences. I hope we can all see the young man in the picture we have right here. Well dressed enough and is standing on about 8 books with the spines quite bad and with the leaves I think they are quite old, and he's looking in the distance. Okay, he's looking at the distance, standing in the mountain landscape. That's where he's standing. That is a picture of inference. We're trying to read meaning into what we can see here. So what we can see, what we can read, what can we see outside it? Like we're looking outside the box. Okay, so outside the landscape, what do you think is doing? Probably is trying to, based on the information in the book, see something out there to see if it's really true or false. That is what inference making is about. So we are about to look at the inferences that we can make based on the information we are provided with or that we have available before us. Inference, a conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. So a conclusion you reach on the basis of evidence and reasoning. What do you mean by evidence? Evidence is the fact as it's been stated there. What things can you say which are things you can depend on to say that, okay, based on this information I have, this is what they're talking about. And reasoning, your logic, does it make sense? What you basing your information on, does it actually make sense? Is it a truth? Is it something that you can hold on and say it's really working? We continue in the reading. For example, I infer that there is a ghost in my house based on the evidence that I have seen objects moving on their own. You see, so the evidence is what? Objects are moving on their own. And then based on the evidence that the objects are moving on their own, I infer that there should be a ghost in the house there. You get a point? So what you already know will inform your reasoning. It's going to inform your ability to reason about the thing carefully. Because if you don't know or have not read earlier that ghosts make objects move about on their own in the room, when you see them moving about, you will not have any thoughts about it. You will just be wondering what is happening. But because you have already got information that ghosts do one of these things, that is, they make objects move about, you are able to infer because one, you see the fact that things are moving, and two, you were told that that's what ghosts do. So you conclude that this is the work of a ghost because of the fact that you have earlier known that that is what ghosts do. So that is part of inferences. Inference, a conclusion reached based on the base of evidence and reasoning. We're continuing the whole thing again. For example, if my best friend stops talking to me, I can infer that he's angry at me or he thinks I'm crazy and doesn't want to be seen with me. So that's what can happen. If my friend doesn't want to talk to me, I like to look into myself to see what is happening or what had happened. Why is my friend acting the way he or she is doing? So you infer, you based on that, you see, so probably something happened, or that your friend's in a certain mood. You try to gather those evidence to draw a conclusion now. So what you're basically doing subconsciously is inferring. You are inferring. When I mean subconscious, I mean that you are doing it without knowing. Okay, you are inferring. That is all it means here. So for example, I'm reading the example again. If my best friend stops talking to me, I can infer that he's angry at me or he thinks I'm crazy and doesn't want to be seen with me. That is one of the conclusions you can draw based on the evidence we have. When you read, you need to make inference about things happening in the story. So we make inference about things happening in the story. You know, we're learning this lesson to be able to help ourselves with writing the summary and also working very well at summaries and also working on our reading comprehension. We want to be able to do well in reading comprehension and also working on our summary. So we're looking at this lesson. I'm reading from the bracket. This process will help you write your essay at the end of the unit. So when you have to write your essay at the end of the unit, the essay the man means here is your summary or your reading comprehension. You know, you have to write out what you understand of the passage. To do that, you need the knowledge of inference. For example, if I read that the main character hates old people, but then later becomes friends with an old person, I can infer that a theme of this story relates to challenging your prejudices. Okay, so if the main character hates old people, but then later becomes a friend with an old person, like I said, no, then the theme of this whole thing, the main idea in the whole story, based on the evidence I have, based on the evidence of hating old people and now loving an old person, is that the main idea here is that challenging your prejudices, that's challenging your preoccupied thoughts, as in the way you think about things, which is not based on evidence. So you are challenging it, you are trying to look at it from a better way now, trying to look at things from a point where your point or your conclusion is based on evidence. How to make inferences. We're looking at how to make inferences. So we're looking at the steps involved in making inferences. What should you do if you want to make inferences? That's what we're looking at right now. Step 1, consider the facts. What I mean fact? Fact is something that you can prove to be true. Something that's proven to be true is called fact. Something that's universally accepted to be true is called fact. So in a passage, what is written there are the facts in the passage. Observe all the facts, argument, and information given by the author. So what true sayings have the author put there? When you're talking about argument here is about the person's opinion. Is it talking about things favorably, or is it talking about a thing negatively? Is it being negatively biased, or is it being positively biased? Is he appreciating the thing, talking about it in a nice way that you like it, or is talking about it in a way that you're not going to like it? All those are our biases, and then we have the positive bias and negative bias. So that when they mean argument, that is what is basically talk about. And information given by the author. The author of a passage will provide you with a lot of information. So you must think about each and every one of them. You must analyze them to see what conclusion you can make based on that. It should be noted that inferences should be made based on the information provided, nothing else outside the passage. You see, when you are inferring, try to base all your conclusion on the passage. All conclusions should be on the passage. Please don't look outside the passage for information. Okay? Whatever information is stated in the passage is what all your answers should be based on. And what I mean, let me clarify a little. What I mean here is that what is in the passage, what secret meanings or what secret information are that have not been revealed. You should go that length. But then don't bring things that are far away from the passage, things that you cannot base on the passage, that this thing said here, this is what it means. You cannot base on the passage. Don't bring them on board. Bring only things that the things written in the passage can end up saying. Alright, so we're looking at the next step for making inferences. Step 2. Check for prior knowledge. Right, so what do you already know? What knowledge do you already have? Like the ghost story we read, the person was told or have learned or have experienced that ghosts can move objects around, or that ghosts do some things which are not done by human beings without supernatural powers. Okay, so the person seeing the ghost moving there, things around the room moving to and fro, he think that, oh no, there should be a ghost in here. Okay, so that's a prior knowledge. So the information you are provided and what you already know, you put all together to see what conclusion you can make. So based on what you have, you can ask yourself, which is new, or what other thing is being said here? What meaning can this particular one have that what I already know doesn't have? What else? Which angle is the thing towing in this at this point in time? And what has been said? How can I compare? So how similar are they? How varied are they? I mean, how what's the name? Different are they? So you should think about all those things in your with your prior knowledge. Okay. Once you are sure of the fact, the next step is to draw on your prior knowledge edge. What have you already learned and experienced? What you have already learned and experienced can help you make accurate inferences. So what you have already learned and experienced. In fact, if you don't know that ghosts move things about in a room, when you hear or you see that happening, you just be wondering what is happening. But if you know that ghosts move things about in the room, based on the fact that you've known that, when you see that happening, you easily conclude that this is what is happening. If you see somebody coming so close to you, chatting you, trying to find out about you, being kind to you, you infer that the person likes you or wants to have you for a friend, okay? Because of the fact that this is what you have as evidence. Do you get the point? So we draw conclusion based on our prior knowledge, the knowledge you already have, okay? Step 3, challenge your conclusions with alternatives. Right, so when you gather the fact, the argument, and the information in the passage, when you are done gathering all those things, you could gather them by underlining them, important points, by jotting them down somewhere, or by, as you're reading, you should try to be noting them. Okay, those are the ways out. And also, when you test them with your prior knowledge, what you already know about the passage, you test it with that one to see what you have. The last thing to do is that challenge your conclusion with alternatives. Ask yourself, this information that I think is the best one that will answer the question, or the best inference I can make based on the passage, is it really true? Challenge it. Look for other information in the passage that will prove otherwise. If the information in the passage doesn't prove otherwise, then you are right. What I mean is that maybe there's something there that also has a similar information that you can compare this one with. Or maybe what you have is talking about a general thing, but then the question is asking you to talk about a specific thing. Or what you have is talking about a specific thing, but then the answer you found is talking about a general thing. So you should compare them and then see which is the better one. The better one is the one that actually answers the question more. Even if to 70%, you know that it's better off than the one that will answer about 50 to 45 down there. Okay, so challenge your conclusion with alternatives. Have you ever jumped to a conclusion only to be proven wrong later? Many times, there may be a better explanation for a set of facts than the first one that comes to mind. You know, sometimes when we read the first thing, before you know it, we will just conclude that, oh, what I've got is the truth. But then you have to think about it again. The effective reader hunts for the most reasonable explanation. You have to look out for, do everything to find it. Underline, write it out, jot note beside the passage, look at the words there. Some of the words will show like the connectives. Some are showing additional information. Some are showing contrasting information. Some are showing a conclusion. All these things should be looked at to see what you want to arrive at. The best way to do this is to challenge first impression with alternative explanations. Okay, so challenge your first impression with what? Alternative explanations. How to make inferences. We're looking at the 3 points mentioned here. Use these 3 steps to think your way through to logical conclusion based on sound inferences. So if you want to infer and be right or very close to the answer, the first thing you should do is consider the facts. The next thing is check for prior knowledge, and finally challenge your conclusion with alternatives. If there are no alternatives to what you have, or the alternatives are weaker than what you have, then that is the best thing. If the alternatives you have are stronger than what you have, then please change your conclusion and pick the alternatives. Okay, an inference is not based solely on your opinion. It's not only your opinion, what you are thinking, which may be based on fact or not. It is based on evidence. It is based on evidence. What you have in the passage, that is what proven to be true. In a story, everything you read in the text, what characters say or do, what events happen in the plot, etc., okay, can be used as the basis for making an inference. So if you want to make an inference, the evidence you're going to have are, in a story, everything you read in the text. Everything you read in the text. What characters say or do. What are the characters saying or doing? And then everything else in the story can be used as the basis for making an inference. So you should use each and every one of them from every angle to make the inference. So when you are reading a passage for inferences or to write a summary or to understand it clearly for reading comprehension purposes sake, you need to read with your mind wide open and your attention on what you are reading. You must read actively. That is all they're asking you to do here. Then the text says the main character hates all people, like we read in the previous text. So the main character hates all people. Okay, what conclusion can we make about that? I can infer that the main character has a mean and a childish personality. So I can say that, okay, fine, that character is mean, as in he's intolerant. He does not give in to the views of other people. And childish in his personality. What do we mean by that? He is showing immaturity. Okay, all these things are revealed by the text we read. So you should draw the conclusions properly. Things to make inference about. What are some of the things you must make inference about when you're reading a passage? Character development. How is the character going to move about, grow in the passage? Probably initially there are some information that have not been revealed about the character, and for that matter, you view the character in a certain way. But as the story goes on, some other informations have been added, and that will make you understand the character better. Or even the character in the story have not done some things, or some things are not been said about it. So the character even does not change, but as the time progresses, is changing with time to other characters. The person could be a person who is very gentle, quiet, talking less, very tolerable, but then because of things happening to him or her, he or she changes to a person who is now trying to be mean, trying to not respect people, trying to not show kindness and stuff like that. All these things are things that you're going to have about character development. I'll read the one in the brackets about character development again. How a character's personality or motivation changes over the course of the story. How a character's personality or motivation changes over the course of the story. So theme, the next one is themes. What messages or morals are revealed to the readers over the course of the story? You know, people write and there's an information they want to pass down to you. There's a lesson they want you to learn. That's the morals. So you should be looking out for what moral or what information does this reader want you to get at the end of the whole thing. What does he want you to carry back home? It will not be stated clearly, but you should be able to put the pieces together to arrive at the conclusion. Now, sometimes the next point is symbols. What things in the story represent or symbolize, and how those symbols are developed over the course of the story. Somebody is trying to write things and then he will be using coded language. Simply put, he will be using expressions that will be understood by only people who are there or who are close to him or her. You know, some people are there that they want to hide an information, so they will have to sign it out, or they will be using expressions that will make you not understand them. You know, sometimes somebody is even talking and then as you are around, the person will change into another language, talk to another person. Why is that changing language? All in the course of hiding something the person doesn't want you to know. Okay, so people will use symbols, and you should be able to trace to know what all those symbols mean. Okay, now looking at finally the plot of the story, things to make inference about. The last one is plot of the story. How the author develops, progresses, and resolves conflict over the course of the story. So how is the author making the story to flow? What information is it revealing? How is the orientation going? How is the build-up of the story moving? How did it go to the point of dilemma and climax? And then finally, how is it going to the point of resolution? How are all those things going? And then how do things return to normal? All these things are going to be written in the story. You must take your time to find out about them carefully. Inference. Making an inference can be thought of as reading between the lines. So you're reading between the lines. You want to see what everything means, not what is actually there, but what other meaning is hidden behind them. So reading between the lines of what you read or observe. Okay, so clues, we have under the book, we have clues in the book plus my own thinking. The clues I have in the book, the fact provided there, the argument provided there, any other additional information that the writer has put out there, and my own reasoning. What have I known? What do I think about the information provided? So all that will spark a light in my mind. It will make me to see things clearly now. You see, so inference is like you trying to see the hidden meaning behind things. So it will spark a light in my mind, and now I can infer. I have made inference. I can see things clearly now. So clues in the book plus my own thinking is equal to my inference. Okay, we're looking at the note somebody has made here about inferences, the observation, and then the inferences that the person is drawing based on that, so that we can learn part of the lesson. So he has on page 1, page 2, part of it, and also another thing from page 2. So the first one, that's the C, under observation. Alan cries, "Do you mean it's a poison?" in a hurried way that after the old man describes it to him. So an old man describes something to Alan and he cries out, "Do you mean it's a poison?" He said it in a hurried way. Now what conclusion can you make based on this? This shows that Alan is very innocent in his intentions. So it shows the innocence of Alan. He is horrified by the idea of hurting someone or doing something illegal. Okay, so he's horrified by that. It frightens him that he's going to do something or has done something illegal, thinking that the thing he was taking wasn't a poison, but rather it ended up being a poison. Now let's look at another one on page 2, the first one on page 2. Alan responds with things like, "Wonderful, and that is love." When the old man tells him the love potion will make Diana do everything he wants her to do. So here, Alan retorted, "Wonderful, and that's love." When the old man told him that everything that he wants Diana to do, because of the love potion, Diana will do it. Let's see the conclusion we can draw based on this. This shows that Alan is selfish. You see, he's thinking about himself and cares more about himself than Diana. So he's thinking more about what? Himself than Diana. He wants to be satisfied. He wants Diana to do what will satisfy him, not what to satisfy both of them. He doesn't want Diana to be on her own to reason up and love him, but rather wants to use a potion, a love potion that will make Diana love him. Ironically, self-love is the opposite of what real love is. You see, so here, self-love, here, what's the name? Alan is trying to make Diana to not show self-love, but rather he's trying to make Diana to show self-love instead of real love. Okay, now that last one, the T, that is second page T. The old man says, "I like to oblige. Then customers come back later in life when they are better off and want more expensive things." T, the old man says, "I like to oblige. Then customers come back later in life when they are better off and want more expensive things." So this is a whole thing that the person observed. What conclusion can we make based on it, or what inference can we make? A theme in this story might be that selfishness and self-love leads to unhappiness. So selfishness and self-love leads to what? Unhappiness. The old man implies that the clients who buy his cheap love potions, the word is potion but mistakenly written as positions. Love potions often come back later in life to buy the expensive poison. Only truly unhappy people have a reason to want to kill someone. So this is the conclusion based on the information provided here. So basically, this lesson is on inferences and how you can make it. So you have to read analytically a passage to be able to do well in everything on passages, both in summary and also in reading comprehension.